The morning sun painted the sky orange over Kepler 442b as 8-year-old Daiho pressed his nose against the window of their small home. His breath made tiny clouds on the glass as he watched the mining robots work in the distance. Their metal. Arms moved up and down, digging deep holes in the red dirt. "Daiho, come eat your breakfast," called his mother Hyejin from the kitchen. She had made his favorite rice porridge with dried seaweed. The smell filled their small house and made his stomach growl. His father Kyung-min sat at the table reading news on his tablet. Deep lines covered his face from years of hard work on the mining planet. He looked up when Daiho sat down and smiled. "Today we will check the water filters in the greenhouse. Would you like to help me?" Daiho nodded quickly. He loved working with his father in their greenhouse. They grew vegetables and fruits that other families in the colony bought. It was hard work, but his parents had built a good life here on the edge of human space. The colony on Kepler 442b was small. Only 300 people lived there, spread across 20 buildings. Most families worked in the mines, digging up rare metals that Earth needed. But the Lim family was different. They grew food in their large greenhouse using special water and lights. "The transport ship will come next week," Kyung-min said as he ate. "We need to have the vegetables ready to send to the main station." Hyejin sat down with her own bowl. "I hope the weather stays good. The storms last month damaged some of our equipment." Daiho listened to his parents talk about their work. He did not understand everything, but he felt safe here with them. This place was far from Earth, but it was home. Outside their window, the landscape looked strange and beautiful. Purple rocks pushed up from the ground like giant fingers. In the distance, 2 small moons hung in the sky, even though it was morning. Everything was different from the pictures of Earth that Daiho had seen, but he loved it here. After breakfast, Daiho helped his father in the greenhouse. They checked each plant and made sure the water was clean. The greenhouse was warm and full of green life. Tomatoes hung heavy on their vines. Lettuce grew in neat rows. The air smelled fresh and alive. "Papa, why do we live so far from other people?" Daiho asked as he watered a row of carrots. Kyung-min stopped his work and looked at his son. "Sometimes the best opportunities are in places where others are afraid to go. We came here to build something good for our family." "Are there dangerous things out there?" Daiho pointed toward the wild areas beyond the colony. "Some animals, yes. But mostly it is safe if we are careful." Kyung-min did not tell his son about the pirates who sometimes attacked small colonies. He did not want to scare the boy. But danger was already coming to their world. High above the planet, a sleek black ship moved through space without making any sound. Inside the ship, something much more dangerous than any pirate prepared for the hunt. Vorthak stood 3 meters tall in his ship's command room. His scales were dark like midnight, and they reflected the light from his ship's controls. His golden eyes scanned the planet below. This was a perfect hunting ground, small, isolated, full of prey that had nowhere to run. For 300 years, Vorthak had been one of the greatest hunters in the Saurid Empire. His people were born to hunt. Their bodies were perfect killing machines. Sharp claws that could cut through metal, teeth like daggers, scales that could turn colors to show how dangerous they were. But it was not just their bodies that made them feared across the galaxy. The Saurids could smell fear. They could taste terror in the air, and they collected these scents like trophies. The more afraid their prey was, the better the hunt. Vorthak had hunted on 100 worlds. He had tracked beings of every size and species. Some ran fast, some were very smart, some tried to fight back, but they all smelled the same in the end. They all smelled of fear. He looked at the human colony through his ship's cameras. Humans were new to this part of space. Their colonies were small and weak, perfect for a warm-up hunt before he went after bigger prey. His ship's computer showed him information about the colony. 300 humans, mostly miners and farmers. No military, no weapons stronger than mining tools. This would be easy, but easy hunts were boring. Vorthak needed something to make this interesting. He watched the humans work in their small settlement. Adults moved between buildings. Children played in a schoolyard. All of them going about their daily lives with no idea that death watched them from above. Then he saw something that caught his attention. Pirates. 3 small ships approached the colony from the other side of the planet. Their ships were old and dirty, held together with patches and hope. They were coming to steal whatever they could find. Vorthak smiled, showing his sharp teeth. This was perfect. He would let the pirates attack first. They would scatter the humans and create chaos. Then, when the humans were already afraid and running, he would hunt both the pirates and their victims. The fear would be twice as sweet. He settled back in his chair to watch the show begin. Down on the planet, the first explosions lit up the morning sky. Daiho looked up from his work as the sound reached their greenhouse. It was a deep rumble that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "What was that?" he asked his father. Kyungmin dropped his tools and ran to the window. In the distance, black smoke rose from the main colony buildings. Red lights flashed on the emergency towers. "Pirates!" he whispered. Then louder, "Hyejin, come quickly!" His mother ran into the greenhouse. Her face went white when she saw the smoke. "How many ships?" "I can see 3. Maybe more coming." Kyungmin grabbed his son's hand. "We need to get to the emergency shelter. Now!" The 3 of them ran across, their property toward a small building hidden behind the greenhouse. Kyungmin had built it 2 years ago, hoping they would never need it. It had thick walls, its own air supply, and enough food for a week. More explosions echoed across the valley. The sound of laser weapons cracked through the air. Somewhere, people were screaming. "Stay here," Kyungmin told Daiho as he opened the shelter door. "No matter what happens, you stay hidden until the danger is over." "But Papa, promise me." Kyungmin knelt down and looked into his son's eyes. "Promise me you will stay safe." Daiho nodded, though he did not understand why his parents looked so scared. Hyejin hugged him tight. "We love you so much. Remember?" That always. Then they were gone, running back toward the colony to help their neighbors. Daiho watched them go from the shelter's small window. They looked very small against the smoke and fire in the distance. He waited in the shelter as the sounds of battle grew louder, then slowly faded away. Hours passed. The explosions stopped. The screaming ended. Everything became quiet. Too quiet. When the sun began to set, painting the sky red like the smoke that had filled it all day, Daiho could not wait anymore. He pushed open the shelter door and stepped outside. The colony was burning. Pieces of broken buildings lay scattered across the ground. The transport pad where the supply ships landed was now just twisted metal, and there were no people anywhere. "Mama? Papa?" His voice sounded very small in the empty air. No one answered. Daiho began to walk toward the colony, calling for his parents. But with each step, the sick feeling in his stomach grew stronger. The pirates were gone. His parents were gone. Everyone was gone. He was alone on an alien world, with night falling fast, and in the darkness above, something much worse than pirates had been watching. Something that had waited patiently for this moment. Something that now began its descent toward the surface, ready to begin the real hunt. The boy walked alone through the ruins, not knowing that the greatest predator in the galaxy was coming for him. The purple rocks around Daiho looked like sleeping giants in the growing darkness. He had walked for 2 hours through the ruins of the colony, calling for his parents until his voice became hoarse and weak. Every building he checked was empty. Every room he searched held only broken furniture and scattered belongings. His small feet hurt from walking on the rough ground. His clothes were dirty from crawling through damaged buildings. But he kept moving because he did not know what else to do. The idea of being truly alone was too big and scary for his 8-year-old mind to accept. "Mama," he whispered to the empty air, "where are you?" Above him, the two moons of Kepler 442b began to rise. Their silver light made strange shadows between the rocks. In the distance, something howled. It was probably just one of the small animals that lived in the wild areas, but it made Deho shiver. He found a large crystalline outcropping that glowed softly in the moonlight. The crystals were warm to the touch, and they provided some shelter from the cold wind that had started to blow. Deho sat down with his back against the largest crystal and pulled his knees up to his chest. For the first time since leaving the shelter, he began to cry. Not the loud crying of a hurt child, but the quiet, hopeless tears of someone who understands that everything has changed forever. High above, Vorthak watched the small human through the sensors of his ship. The boy's heat signature showed clearly against the cool crystals. Such a tiny thing, so fragile, so alone, perfect. Vorthak had seen the pirates capture the adult humans and take them away in their ships. He could have stopped them easily. But that would have ruined his hunt. Now he had what he wanted, a scared, isolated prey with nowhere to run. He activated his ship's transport system and felt the familiar tingle as his body dissolved into energy and reformed on the planet's surface. The night air smelled of smoke from the burning colony and the strange, sweet scent of the local flowers that bloomed only in darkness. But underneath those smells was something else. Something that made Vorthak's hunting instincts sharpen with excitement, the smell of human fear. He moved silently between the rocks, his dark scales helping him blend with the shadows. His people had evolved to be perfect hunters. Every sense was designed to track prey. Every muscle was built for the kill. His golden eyes could see clearly in the darkness. His ears could hear a heartbeat from 50 meters away. The human child sat motionless against the crystals, lost in his grief. He had no idea that death was approaching. Vorthak stopped 10 meters away and began his hunt ritual. First, he extended, the sharp spines that ran along his back and arms. The spines caught the moonlight and gleamed like silver needles. Then he activated the color-changing cells in his scales. Patterns of red and orange flowed across his body like liquid fire. These were warning colors, designed by millions of years of evolution to trigger fear in other species. Finally, he released his terrapheromones into the air. These invisible chemicals would flood the prey's nervous system and paralyze them, with pure mindless panic. Vorthak had used this display on countless hunts. Warriors twice his size had collapsed in terror. Creatures with advanced technology had forgotten how to use their weapons. Beings that prided themselves on courage had begged for mercy. He stepped into the moonlight where the boy could see him clearly. His 3-meter frame towered over the small human like a living nightmare. His scales shifted through brilliant patterns of warning colors. The spines along his back extended to their full length, creating a crown of deadly points around his head. Then he opened his mouth and roared. The sound echoed off the rocks like thunder. It was a sound that had terrified prey across the galaxy, a sound that meant death was coming. Deho looked up, but instead of screaming, instead of running, instead of collapsing in terror like every other creature Vorthak had ever hunted, the boy simply stared at him with wide, curious eyes. "Oh," Deho said softly. "Are you hurt?" Vorthak's roar died in his throat. His spines lowered slightly. Of all the reactions he had expected, this was not one of them. "Your colors are really bright," the boy continued, standing up slowly. "Are you trying to tell me something? My teacher said some animals change colors when they're sick or scared. The terror pheromones should have driven the child into a panic by now. But Deho showed no signs of fear. Instead, he took a small step closer to the towering alien. "Are you lost too?" the boy asked. "I can't find my parents. The bad men took them away." Vorthak felt something he had never experienced in 300 years of hunting. Confusion, complete Absolute confusion. His prey was talking to him. His prey was concerned about him. His prey was not afraid. He tried roaring again, louder this time. The sound shook dust from the crystal formations and sent small animals scurrying away in panic. Deho covered his ears with his hands. "That's really loud," he said when the roar ended. "My dad says using our inside voice is important, especially at night when others might be sleeping." The boy paused and looked around at the empty landscape. "But I guess there's nobody else here to wake up." Vorthak stared down at this impossible creature. In his long life, he had studied the behavior of hundreds of species. He understood fear. He understood the hunt. He understood the natural order where predators killed and prey died. But he did not understand this. The human child showed no signs of the terror response. His heart rate was elevated, but not from fear, from excitement, from curiosity. The boy was actually interested in meeting him. Without thinking about it, Vorthak found himself lowering into a crouch. His massive frame folded down until he was closer to the boy's eye level. The movement was not something he had planned. It just seemed like the right thing to do. "Are you an alien?" Deho asked, his voice full of wonder instead of terror. "I've never seen an alien before. Are there many like you?" Vorthak tried to speak, but found that he had forgotten how. For centuries, the only sounds he made were roars and growls. Communication was something prey did before he killed them. He had never needed words during a hunt. The boy seemed to understand his silence. "It's okay if you can't talk. Sometimes when I'm really sad, I can't find words either." The child sat back down against the crystal, but now he was facing Vorthak instead of looking away. "Are you here because of the bad men? They took my mama and papa away in their ships. They burned our home." Something twisted in Vorthak's chest, an emotion he did not recognize. The boy's voice was so small, so lost, so trusting, even when facing a creature that could kill him with one swipe of a claw. "I was hiding like Papa told me to," Deho continued. "But when it got quiet, I came out to look for them. I think they're gone now. I think I'm all alone." A tear rolled down the boy's cheek, but he wiped it away quickly and looked up at Vorthak with brave eyes. "But maybe I'm not alone anymore. Maybe you can be my friend." Friend. The word hit Vorthak like a physical blow. No creature had ever called him friend. He was death. He was fear. He was the nightmare that parents used to scare their children into behaving. But this child, this impossible human child, was offering him friendship. The temperature was dropping as the night grew deeper. Vorthak could see the boy beginning to shiver in his thin clothes. The human body was not designed for the cool nights of this planet. Without making a conscious decision, Vorthak moved closer. His massive body blocked the cold wind. His scales, still warm from the day's heat, radiated warmth toward the small human. Deho smiled. "Thank you. You're very warm." The boy leaned against Vorthak's arm, trusting him completely. The alien hunter felt the child's small body shaking with cold and, without understanding why, he carefully wrapped one massive arm around the boy. "My name is Deho," the child said sleepily. "What's your name?" "Vorthak," the hunter found himself saying. The word came out as a low growl, but somehow the boy understood. "Vorthak," Deho repeated carefully. "That's hard to say. Can I call you Brother Tyke? That sounds friendlier." Brother, another word that had never been applied to him. Brothers protected each other. Brothers cared for each other. Brothers did not hunt each other. "Brother Tyke," Deho said again, and somehow the simple nickname felt right. As the boy fell asleep against his side, Vorthak stared up at the alien stars and wondered what was happening to him. For the first time in 3 centuries, he was not thinking about the hunt. He was not planning how to kill his prey. Instead, He was thinking about how small and fragile the sleeping child felt against him, how the boy had trusted him without fear, how it felt to be called friend and brother, instead of monster. Something was changing inside him, something he did not understand, but whatever it was, it felt important. The morning sun found Vorthak still awake, watching over the sleeping human child. All night, he had listened to Daeho's steady breathing and felt the boy's small heartbeat against his side. Strange dreams had filled the child's sleep, and twice, he had called out for his parents. Each time, Vorthak had gently adjusted his position to keep the boy warm and safe. This was not how hunts were supposed to go. When Daeho woke, he looked up at Vorthak with bright eyes and smiled. "Good morning, Brother Tyke. Did you sleep too?" Vorthak had not slept in 47 hours, but he found himself making a low, gentle rumble that somehow meant yes. The sound surprised him. He had never made that noise before. "I'm hungry," Daeho said, rubbing his stomach. "Do you know where we can find food?" Food. Vorthak had spent centuries hunting for the thrill of the kill, not for survival. But now, looking at the thin human child, he felt something new, the need to provide. The need to care for someone other than himself. He stood and scanned the landscape with his enhanced vision. Small creatures moved through the purple rocks. Plants grew in the shadows where morning dew collected. His hunting instincts, evolved over millions of years, now turned toward a different purpose. "Stay here," he told Daeho. His voice was still, a growl, but somehow the boy understood that it meant safety, not danger. Vorthak moved through the rocks with silent grace. His claws, designed to rend and tear, carefully gathered sweet berries from high branches. His powerful jaws, made for crushing bones, gently caught small fish-like creatures from a clear stream. But when he returned, Daeho looked at the raw fish with confusion. "Is it cooked? My mama always cooks fish before we eat it." Cooked. Vorthak had never cooked anything in his life. The saurid ate their prey fresh and raw, savoring the taste of fear that lingered in the meat. But humans were different. They changed their food with fire. Using his claws and some dry grass, Vorthak carefully started a small fire. The flames reminded him uncomfortably of the burning colony, but Daeho clapped his hands with delight. "You know how to make fire, too? You're really smart, Brother Tyke." Smart. Another new word applied to him, not dangerous, not deadly, smart. The fish smelled strange when cooked, but Daeho ate it happily and shared the sweet berries with his new friend. As they ate, the boy talked about his life before the attack. "My papa taught me about plants," Daeho said. "He said every plant has a purpose. Some are for food, some are for medicine, and some are just for making the world beautiful." The boy pointed to a cluster of silver flowers growing nearby. "Like those. They don't do anything useful, but they're pretty." Vorthak looked at the flowers and saw them differently than he ever had before. Not as part of the landscape to hide in during a hunt, but as something that existed simply to be beautiful. The concept was foreign to him, but somehow it made sense. When the child explained it, Papa also said that every person has a purpose too, Daeho continued. "I wonder what your purpose is, Brother Tyek." Purpose. Vorthak had always believed his purpose was to hunt, to kill, to collect fear like a trophy. But sitting here with this small human, sharing a meal and watching silver flowers dance in the morning breeze, he wondered if perhaps he had been wrong about everything. Over the following days, they developed a routine. Vorthak would hunt for food while Daeho explored the area around their camp, always staying within sight. The boy's curiosity seemed endless. He asked questions about everything. He saw. "Why are your eyes gold? Do you have a family? Where do you come from? Are there others like you?" Most of these questions Vorthak could not answer. He had never thought about why his eyes were the color they were. He had never considered his origins beyond being a perfect hunter, and family, that word the boy used so easily, was something completely outside his experience. "I don't have family," he finally managed to say during one of their evening conversations. Daeho looked sad. Everyone should have family. Family means people who love you no matter what. Love. Another human concept that Vorthak did not understand. But watching the way the boy's face lit up when he talked about his parents, seeing how even their memory brought him comfort, Vorthak began to grasp that this was something important, something he had never experienced. "Are you lonely?" Daeho asked one night as they sat by their fire. The question hit Vorthak like a physical blow. Lonely. He had spent 3 centuries hunting alone, speaking to no one, connecting with nothing. He had thought that was strength, independence. The way a perfect predator should live. But now, with this small human asking him direct, caring questions, he realized that yes, he had been lonely. Desperately, achingly lonely for longer than he could remember. "Yes," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. Daeho moved closer and patted Vorthak's massive arm with his small hand. "It's okay. You're not lonely anymore. I'm here now." On the 4th day, Daeho became sick. It started as a small cough, but by evening he was burning with fever. His small body shook with chills despite the warm night air. Vorthak felt something he had never experienced before. Panic. Pure, overwhelming panic. The boy was dying, and Vorthak did not know how to save him. He tried everything he could think of. He brought cool water to lower the fever. He wrapped the child in his own warm scales. He stayed awake for 3 straight days, monitoring every breath, every heartbeat. "Papa," Daeho mumbled in his delirium. "Papa, where are you?" "I'm here," Vorthak found himself saying. "I'm here." "Papa Tayek," the boy whispered, reaching out with a hot small hand. Papa. Father. Parent. Something fundamental shifted in Vorthak's mind when he heard that word. Deep in his brain, ancient circuits that had been dormant for his entire life suddenly activated. Parental instincts that his warrior culture had suppressed for millions of years came flooding back. He was no longer just protecting this child. He was caring for his child, his offspring, his family. The transformation was not just emotional. Vorthak could feel his body chemistry changing. Hormones he had never experienced before flooded his system. His aggressive instincts dulled while his protective ones sharpened to a razor's edge. On the 3rd night of Daeho's fever, the boy's breathing became shallow and weak. Vorthak pressed his ear to the small chest and heard the irregular flutter of a failing heart. "No," he growled into the darkness. "No, you cannot leave me." He wrapped his entire body around the dying child, sharing every bit of his warmth and strength. He whispered words of comfort in his harsh voice, promising that everything would be all right, that Papa Tayek would not let anything happen to him. "I love you," he found himself saying, though he had never understood what those words meant before. "I love you, little one. Please stay with me." As dawn broke over the alien landscape, Daeho's fever finally broke. The boy opened his eyes and smiled weakly at the massive alien who had spent 3 days and nights keeping him alive. "Papa Tayek," he whispered. "You saved me." Vorthak felt tears in his golden eyes. He had not even known that his species could cry. But looking down at this small human who trusted him completely, who called him father, who had somehow transformed a killer into a protector, he understood that his life had changed forever. He was no longer Vorthak the hunter, terror of the galaxy. He was Papa Tayek, father to a human child, and he would die before he let anyone hurt his son. The greatest predator in the known galaxy had become something much more dangerous than he had ever been before. He had become a parent. 2 weeks passed in peaceful routine. Daiho grew stronger each day under Vorthak's careful protection. The boy had learned to recognize which berries were safe to eat and how to catch the small silver fish that lived in the streams. More importantly, he had taught Vorthak about human customs, human emotions, and human ways of seeing the world. "Papa Taik," Daiho said one morning as they shared breakfast by their small fire. "Do you think my real mama and papa are okay?" The question made Vorthak's chest tighten with an emotion he was still learning to understand. Guilt. He knew the pirates had taken the adult humans to sell as slaves in the outer systems. Most of them were probably still alive, but finding them would be nearly impossible. "I hope so," he answered honestly. It was the most comfort he could give without lying to the child. "When I grow up, I want to find them," Daiho said with the fierce determination that only children possess. "And I want you to come with me. We'll be a family together." Family. The word still felt strange to Vorthak, but also right. Whatever a family was supposed to be. He wanted to be part of one with this small human who had changed everything about his existence. Their peaceful morning was shattered by the sound of engines screaming through the atmosphere. Vorthak's enhanced hearing picked up the distinctive whine of Saurid patrol ships long before they became visible. His blood turned to ice in his veins. "Get behind the rocks," he ordered Daiho, his voice sharp with sudden fear. "Hide and do not come out no matter what you see or hear. But Papa Taik, go, now." The authority in his voice sent the boy scrambling for cover just as 3 sleek black ships landed in the clearing. Dust and debris flew everywhere as their landing thrusters fired. Vorthak stood alone in the center of the clearing, watching, as familiar figures emerged from the ships, his former hunting companions. Warriors he had fought beside for decades, led by Kethmore, his oldest friend and fiercest rival. Kethmore was nearly as large as Vorthak, with silver scales that marked him as a senior hunter. His golden eyes held a mixture of relief and disappointment as he approached. "Vorthak," Kethmore said in the harsh, Saurid language. "We have been searching for you for weeks. The Empire began to worry when you stopped reporting your kills." "I have been delayed," Vorthak replied carefully. "Delayed." Kethmore's scales shifted to show mild amusement. "By what?" This small colony was barely worthy of a single day's hunt. The other Saurids spread out in a loose circle, their weapons ready, but not yet drawn. They were not here to fight him. Not yet. But Vorthak could smell their suspicion in the air. "Where are your trophies?" asked Jorvik, a younger hunter with black scales marked by red stripes. "Where are the fear scents you have collected?" Vorthak had no answer that would satisfy them. How could he explain that he had spent 2 weeks learning to cook food and tell bedtime stories? How could he make them understand that the greatest hunt of his life had ended not with a kill, but with love? "I found more interesting prey," he said finally. Kethmore's eyes narrowed. "Show us." This was what Vorthak had been dreading. He could not reveal Daiho's location, but he also could not lie convincingly to hunters who had known him for decades. They would sense deception immediately. "The prey escaped," he said. "Escaped?" Jorvik laughed harshly. "The great Vorthak, terror of 1,000 worlds, lets his prey escape." "It happens," Vorthak said, but even he could hear how unconvincing the words sounded. Kethmore moved closer, his enhanced senses analyzing every detail of Vorthak's appearance and scent. What he discovered made his scales flash with shock and disgust. "You smell like them," he said slowly. "You smell like human." The other hunters hissed with surprise and revulsion. To carry the scent of prey without having killed it was the ultimate shame for a Saurid hunter. "More than that," Kethmore continued, his voice growing dangerous. "You smell like a parent, like a protector." The words hung in the air like poison. Every Saurid in the clearing understood what they meant. Somehow, impossibly, Their greatest hunter had bonded with prey instead of killing it. "That is not possible," Jorvek said, but his voice wavered with uncertainty. "It is not only possible, it is happening," Kethmore said, his scales now showing the bright colors of anger and challenge. "Vorthak has gone soft. He has forgotten what it means to be Saurid." "I have forgotten nothing," Vorthak growled, but his heart was pounding with fear. Not for himself, but for the small human hiding in the rocks nearby. "Then prove it," Kethmore said. "Show us this prey that you claim escaped. Let us finish what you could not." Behind him, Vorthak heard the smallest sound, a tiny gasp of breath. Deho was still hidden, but the boy was close enough to hear everything. Close enough to be found if the other hunters started searching seriously. "There is no prey here," Vorthak said. "I told you it escaped." Kethmore smiled, showing all of his sharp teeth. "Jorvek, Thakex, spread out and search the area. Our friend Vorthak seems to have developed an attachment to something. Let us find out what it is." The two younger hunters moved toward the rocks, where Deho was hiding. Vorthak's protective instincts exploded into full awareness. Every hormone in his body flooded his system with the overwhelming need to defend his child. "Stop!" he commanded, stepping between the hunters and the rocks. "Ah," Kethmore said with satisfaction. "So there is prey here after all." "Leave," Vorthak said, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "Leave now, and I will forget this happened." "You will forget?" Kethmore laughed. "You have no authority here. Failed hunter. You are a disgrace to our species." Jorvek reached the edge of the rocks and began sniffing the air. His eyes widened when he caught Deho's scent. "A human child," he called back to Kethmore. "Very young, very frightened." "Perfect," Kethmore said. "Young fear is always the sweetest." That was when Vorthak snapped. 300 years of hunting, experience and perfect physical conditioning exploded into motion. But now, instead of hunting for sport, he was fighting to protect the most important thing in his existence. He covered the distance to Jorvek in two massive leaps. His claws, sharpened by centuries of kills, raked across the younger hunter's chest. Jorvek screamed and fell backward, dark blood spraying from the wounds. Thakex fired his plasma weapon, but Vorthak was already moving. The bolt passed through empty air as he rolled to the side and came up fighting. His tail lashed out and caught Thakex across the legs, sending the hunter crashing into the rocks. But Kethmore was ready for him. The two massive saurids collided with the force of meteors. Claw met claw, fang met fang. They were evenly matched in size and skill, but Vorthak had something his opponent did not. Desperation. The absolute need to protect his child. They fought across the clearing, tearing up the ground with their claws, roaring challenges that echoed off the mountains. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as the wounded hunters tried to get clear shots. But Vorthak's parental instincts had sharpened his senses beyond anything he had experienced as a simple hunter. He could track every movement, predict every attack, counter every strike. Kethmore's claws raked across his ribs, opening deep wounds that sent his own blood spattering across the rocks. But Vorthak ignored the pain and drove his opponent backward. With a series of devastating strikes, the fight ended when Vorthak's claws found Kethmore's throat. Not to kill, though he easily could have, but to hold, to dominate, to make his point clear. "Leave," he growled, his golden eyes burning with protective fury. "Leave now, or I will finish what you started." Kethmore looked into those eyes and saw something that shocked him more than the defeat. He saw love, fierce, protective, parental love that would kill anything that threatened its object. "You are no longer Saurid," Kethmore said as Vorthak released him. "No," Vorthak agreed, looking toward the rocks where his son was hiding. "I am something better. I am family." The wounded hunters retreated to their ships. As they prepared to depart, Kethmore called out one final time. The Empire will learn of this. You will be marked as an exile. No Saurid will ever acknowledge you. Again. Good, Vorthak replied. I do not want to be acknowledged by creatures who would harm children. As the ships lifted off and disappeared into the sky, Deho emerged from his hiding place. The boy was crying, but he ran to Vorthak without fear, even though the alien was covered in blood and looked more dangerous than ever. Papa Tyke, you're hurt, Deho sobbed, trying to press his small hands against the wounds in Vorthak's side. I am fine, little one, Vorthak said gently, though the cuts burned like fire. Are you safe? Did they frighten you? I was scared they would take you away, Deho said. I don't want to be alone again. Vorthak carefully lifted the boy and held him close, despite the pain from his wounds. You will never be alone again. I promise you that. As he spoke, he felt the truth of those words settle into his bones. He was an exile now, cut off from his people, marked as a traitor to his species. But looking down at the small human who loved him unconditionally, he realized he had gained far more than he had lost. He had gained a son, and he would protect that son against anything the galaxy could throw at them, even if it cost him everything. The wounds on Vorthak's ribs healed slowly over the next week. Deho helped care for them with the gentle patience of a born healer, cleaning them with water from the stream and covering them with healing moss that grew in the shaded areas between the rocks. My mama used to take care of me when I got hurt, the boy said as he changed the bandages made from strips of his own shirt. She said taking care of people we love is the most important job in the world. Love. Vorthak still marveled at how easily the word came from the child's lips, how naturally Deho accepted it as the foundation of their relationship. The Saurid had no word in their language that meant the same thing, but he was beginning to understand its power. Papa Tyke, Deho said one evening as they sat by their fire. What will happen to us now? Those scary aliens said you couldn't go back to your people. Vorthak had been dreading this conversation. The truth was, he did not know what would happen to them. He was an exile with no home and no people. Deho was a human child who needed safety, education, and a real home to grow up in. The wild places of this planet were no place to raise a child. We will find somewhere safe, he promised. Somewhere we can be together. The answer came 3 days later in the form of a merchant ship that landed near their camp. Vorthak's first instinct was to hide, but the ship bore the markings of a legitimate trading vessel, not pirates or military hunters. A human woman emerged from the ship, followed by 2 other humans and one being that Vorthak did not recognize. The woman was middle-aged with graying hair and kind eyes. She moved with the confident stride of someone used to command. Hello there, she called out in the direction of their camp. We picked up your energy signatures from orbit. Are you in need of assistance? Vorthak stepped into view, keeping Deho safely behind him. The humans immediately reached for their weapons when they saw his massive form, but the woman held up a hand to stop them. Wait, she said, studying Vorthak carefully. You're Saurid, but something is different. Her eyes moved to Deho, who peeked out from behind his protector. And you have a human child with you. I am Captain Bo Yung, of the merchant vessel Souls. Pride, she continued. This is my crew, Dongju, my engineer, Yuna, our medic, and Kalex, our navigator. Deho stepped forward before Vorthak could stop him. I'm Deho. This is my Papa Tek. Are you here to help us? The captain's eyebrows rose at hearing a human child call a Saurid Papa. But she knelt down to Deho's level with practiced ease. We might be able to help, she said gently. But first, can you tell me what happened here? How did you end up alone with... She glanced at Vorthak. With your Papa Tyke? Deho told their story with the simple honesty of childhood. He explained about the pirate attack, about being alone and afraid, and about how Papa Tyke had found him and taken care of him ever since. He was really scary at first, Deho admitted. But then I saw that he was just lonely like me. And now, we're family. Captain Boyong listened to the entire story without interruption. When Daiho finished, she stood and approached Vorthak directly. "Is the boy's story true?" she asked. "Yes," Vorthak replied in his careful, accented human speech. "You adopted him? A saurid hunter adopted a human child?" "I did not plan it," Vorthak said honestly. "It simply happened." "And now you're both outcasts," Captain Boyong said, understanding. Immediately. The Saurid Empire would never accept a hunter who chose protection over killing, and human space doesn't exactly welcome Saurid visitors. "We will manage," Vorthak said, though he had no idea how. "Actually, you might not have to," the captain said thoughtfully. "There's a place that might work for both of you, a colony world called New Seoul. It's a Korean settlement that prides itself on accepting refugees and outcasts from across the galaxy." "Would they accept us?" Daiho asked hopefully. "The colony has a policy of judging people by their actions, not their species," Captain Boyong said. "And if what you've told me is true, your Papa Take's actions speak pretty clearly about what kind of person he is." She paused and looked directly at Vorthak. "There is one problem, though. New Seoul is 3 weeks' travel from here, and we'll have to pass through some dangerous space. Pirates mostly, but also some Saurid patrol routes." "We will pay for passage," Vorthak said. "With what?" Captain Boyong asked gently. "Your refugees. I don't expect you have anything of value." Vorthak's scales darkened with shame. She was right. He had nothing to offer except his skills as a hunter and warrior. "However," the captain continued, "we could use some extra security on this trip. Our cargo is valuable, and we've had trouble with pirates before. If you're willing to help protect the ship and her crew, we'll consider that payment enough." "You would trust me to protect you?" Vorthak asked in surprise. "Any being who would give up everything to protect a child is exactly the kind of person I want watching my back," Captain Boyong said firmly. The journey to New Seoul took 22 days. During that time, Vorthak learned more about human society than he had in his previous 3 centuries of existence. The crew of Seoul's Pride treated him with cautious respect and treated Daiho with the warm affection that humans seem to naturally extend to children. Dongju, the engineer, taught Daiho about how spaceships worked. Yuna, the medic, made sure both father and son were healthy and properly fed. Kalex, who turned out to be a refugee from a species that had been nearly wiped out by Saurid hunters, was initially terrified of Vorthak, but gradually came to accept him when he saw how gentle the massive alien was with his adopted son. Dr. Minho, the ship's xenobiologist, was fascinated by Vorthak's transformation. During the long hours of space travel, he studied the Saurid's brain chemistry and made an astonishing discovery. "Your neural pathways have been completely rewired," he explained to Vorthak one day in the ship's small laboratory. "The parental bonding process has activated dormant genetic sequences that your warrior culture has been suppressing for thousands of years." "What does that mean?" Vorthak asked. "It means that your species was not always purely predatory," Dr. Minho said excitedly. "At some point in your evolution, you were capable of the same nurturing behaviors we see in other intelligent species. Your civilization chose to suppress those traits in favor of becoming perfect hunters. But the capacity for love and protection was always there, buried in your DNA." "So Papa Tyke was always able to love me?" Daiho asked. The boy had been listening to the conversation with the intense focus he applied to everything that involved his adoptive father. "The potential was always there," Dr. Minho confirmed, "but it took the right circumstances to activate it. It took meeting someone who needed protection and who offered love without fear." The peaceful journey was interrupted on the 18th day when pirates attacked the ship. 3 vessels surrounded Seoul's Pride and demanded that they surrender their cargo. This was when Vorthak proved the wisdom of Captain Boyong's decision to bring him aboard. The pirates had clearly not expected to face a Saurid warrior. When Aobavasi, Vorthak appeared on their view screen, wearing makeshift armor and carrying weapons designed for his massive frame. Their demands became much less confident. "That's Vorthak the Hunter," one of the pirate captains said, in a voice that shook with fear, the terror of the Outer Rim. "I am no longer a hunter," Vorthak replied calmly. "I am a protector, and I am protecting this ship and everyone on it." The battle was brief. Vorthak's centuries of combat experience, combined with the crew's knowledge of their ship's capabilities, made short work of the pirates. But what impressed the crew most was not Vorthak's fighting skill, but his restraint. He disabled the pirate ships without destroying them and made sure no lives were lost unnecessarily. "You've changed," Captain Boyung observed after the fight. "The reports I've heard about Saurid hunters say they never show mercy." "I have learned that there are more important things than victory," Vorthak replied, watching Deho help Yuna tend to the minor injuries the crew had sustained. "I have learned that protecting life is more valuable than taking it." When Soul's Pride finally reached New Seoul, Vorthak and Deho stood together at the viewport, looking down at their potential new home. The planet was beautiful, with blue, oceans and green continents that reminded Deho of the pictures he had seen of Earth. "Do you think they'll like us?" Deho asked, pressing his small hand against the cold viewport. "They will like you," Vorthak said with certainty. "You are impossible not to like. What about you?" Vorthak looked down at his adopted son and felt that familiar warmth in his chest that he had learned to recognize as love. "If they do not like me, then we will find somewhere else. Somewhere that accepts families like ours." Captain Boyung joined them at the viewport. "Are you ready for this?" "We are ready," Vorthak said, speaking for both of them. As their ship descended toward the surface of New Seoul, Vorthak reflected on how much his life had changed. Weeks ago, he had been the most feared hunter in the galaxy. Now he was a father, preparing to start a new life on a world full of strangers who might not accept him. But looking at Deho's excited face pressed against the viewport, watching his son's eyes shine with hope and anticipation, Vorthak knew that he had made the right choice. Whatever challenges waited for them on New Seoul, they would face them together, as a family.